Hello and welcome to the SKATEROOM Podcast, where we talk art and skateboarding in the name of social change. Today we're recording from our brand new headquarters in Brussels, and we're joined by Will Ascott. Hiya, mate.
Hiya, how's it going?
All right, yeah.
How you doing, Clara?
I'm very good, thank you. We're very happy to be welcoming Will, who is one of the co-founders of Free Movement Skateboarding, a project that we've been funding through our collaboration with some of the world's most influential artists. We've been partnering with Free Movement Skateboarding since 2019, and in 2022, we've decided to extend our support to a more formal partnership, and we're very happy about this.
As a way.
I mean, this is really just an introduction to you. So how would you describe Free Movement Skateboarding in a sentence?
Oof, one sentence is going to be tricky, but I'll give it a go.
Give it a few sentences.
In Athens, we teach skateboarding to disadvantaged young people, and everything we do is about building community on and off the board.
Okay, nice. And how did skateboarding become a part of your life?
Oof, well, actually, the truth, yeah. When I was about 6, I was walking to the barber's with my mum, and I saw a skateboard outside our house. And then my mum was like, "If that skateboard is still there when we walk back, you can have it." And it was, which was amazing. So I sort of messed around on it, like on my bum, like scooting around for like 4 or 5 years. And then when I was about 10 or 11, I started trying to skate properly, like got a real board. And I think I was probably amongst some of the first people that ever got kind of skateboard lessons. Like I'm quite like, that's a way bigger thing now than it was like 19 years ago, I guess. So yeah, I went to a skate school thing, and like, so 10 till 12 on a Sunday morning, I learned from our good mate Rodney Clark, who was a pro kind of in the 90s. And yeah, I got exposed to a very high level of skateboarding pretty early on from him and from his sort of his other mates that are at this amazing standard. Yeah, and I just got pretty obsessed.
It's a bit of an institution, the Pioneer, isn't it? Because it's like the oldest or the longest running indoor UK skate park, I think.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's all those kind of 90s comps that, you know, like you always see the footage of like Radlands with like Tom Penny and like Jeff Rowley and all that stuff. But at the same time as that, there was, that stuff was still happening in the Pioneer.
Yeah.
The second biggest skate park in the UK at that point, I think.
Yeah. And was the home of the UK Girls Skate Jams run by Jenna Selby and Rogue Skateboards, stuff like that. I mean, it was a real... Well, I don't know. Did it feel like it was a kind of more progressive skate park generally than you would find across the country? I suppose. It's hard
I
to
would
tell
say
at that
so.
age.
Yeah, and I think that was way before I cared about social issues. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, like I didn't care when I was like that stuff. Only it was uni when I sort of started realizing that like maybe these things are important to me. But having sort of the women's scene in the UK a long time before it boomed, having its these big competitions that like people would travel to internationally for, like women's competitions there, was a really influencing thing, and made me sort of understand how skating can and should be for everyone, before I even had like any of the maybe like the language to talk about that sort of thing.
Yeah. What's one of do you have any like real key trick tips or one of those moments at a skate park when someone went like, that's how you nail that trick, and you...
Yeah, I've got one real classic, which is like if a kid's like balancing weird and doing strange stuff with their body and like their weight's not in the right place, you got to tell them that they need to imagine they've got a nosebleed or like a runny nose, and all the blood needs to land on the skateboard. If the blood's going to land off the skateboard, you're going to fall off, mate.
Do you use that one in your classes today?
Very regularly. If we need to keep it extremely PG, then it's snot.
It's snot.
If they're 16 and they're a bit more like
the better
wild,
of the two bodily fluids.
Yeah. The more socially acceptable body fluid is snot than blood.
It's good to know. Well, we're off to a good start.
Yeah.
What about some deeper lessons from skateboarding? How do you look back on that time and think like, how did that change my approach to life? Is there anything that jumps out specifically about skateboarding that, a deeper lesson?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I I just really enjoyed like the social elements and the travel elements of it. Like, and I'm not talking about traveling particularly far, like up and down the train line, like north of London, where I grew up. You know, these are really like not great distances, but I just had some of like really important, like formative experiences for me at that point. You know, kind of early teenage years, getting out and like seeing different places on the weekends, hanging out with different people that are from somewhat different backgrounds to me. I think some of that stuff like informed a sort of left-wing perspective on the world before I knew what those words meant. You know what I mean? Just like I had like a greater awareness perhaps than some people that, you know, maybe I went to school with or just generally were from my silly little middle class bubble of a hometown. I had a bit more of an awareness that some people have like a different standard of life. And if you go skateboarding, you can hang out with them in quite a natural and normal way, which is something that I feel quite lucky for, you know? And I genuinely believe that those experiences formed what I think about the world to this day, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I was going to say to that is I think that we'll talk about Athens quite a bit in a minute, but definitely when I went out to Athens, one thing that I learned from the skaters out there, or it was the first time I'd heard this kind of insight, maybe it was pretty obvious, but this idea that skaters kind of see street life kind of what it is, because the spots you skate on the street tend to be the same places where there's, you know, let's say like a bit more urban decay, a bit more kind of, let's say, face-to-face with homelessness and these kind of issues as well. And it was something that I thought was interesting when you go to a place like Athens, which at the time and still is going through deep economic crisis, and you have skaters seeing that evolution kind of happening from the times where you could be sponsored and could have a career to the times where actually all of that was kind of destroyed along with a lot of other industries. And you find yourself, well, they found themselves around more and more of that kind of those symbols of different backgrounds and different sort of lifestyles. And I wonder whether you've kind of, you know, because in your life you've always put a lot of energy into volunteering and a lot of energy into sort of social projects. Like, you know, do you feel like skateboarding was inherent to that decision, or do you think like that's deeper in you? It's just something that you just think like, I want to give back in some way. Like, where does that come from? Why didn't you work in the city as a banker?
It's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I reckon skateboarding like gave me a loose basis of like, you know, yeah, exposure to people who live different lives to me, you know? And oh, I don't know what to say. Yeah,
Well, maybe you can talk more about like, you know, tell us about when you first started doing youth work and you first started volunteering and like what went into deciding to do that.
I know what to say. Yeah, cool. So I reckon skateboarding kind of gave me, you know, a first taste of like, yeah, just different ways that people, you know, exist. Like quite some of them pretty close to where I'm from, but you just don't even cross paths with them. And then yeah, that it was probably more university and the people that I met there and was spending time with that.
What did you study?
I studied international development. So, you know, a lot of focus on, you know, kind of like poverty and NGOs and, you know, the economics and politics of that. I did a few modules on social anthropology as well, which was really interesting. I entered that course very naive and optimistic about how these things work and just like NGOs save everything. And then like, yeah, kind of left it a bit more pessimistic about those things. And yeah, here I am having co-founded an NGO all these years later. So I don't know where that leaves us. But yeah, I guess like, I don't know. I guess I have an awareness of their limitations would be what I think that degree gave me. But yes, the people that I studied with really, really informed my politics, really helped me like understand, you know, the broader social issues in society. And I'm very, very grateful for them. And, you know, they're a lot of people that I'm still really close with. So super grateful for those experiences. Following uni, kind of having felt a bit disenfranchised, as I just described in some of those industries. I thought I'd try and I thought maybe there might be some sort of way that if in a UK context, like those issues with some of those issues might not be the same. So got into youth work and a lot of like disability support work following university in those first 2 years living in Norwich. Worked with some really brilliant people and got a lot of training and a lot of experience in just good ways to support young people going through all sorts of different problems, I suppose. So very, very grateful for that experience.
And you were teaching with like ABC skateboarding as well, right? The coaching, skate coaching thing run by Pioneer Skate Park. Well, what do you call him? Legend?
The legend that is
Alex Barton.
Yeah. I had what we're doing is we're going through the bit of life after uni where I worked 4 or 5 jobs at once
including a bar job.
Yeah, so I'd do Mondays, I'd do running a little skate school, a little franchise fig of the skate school that Alex Barton ran that Osh just mentioned, and then Tuesday to Friday I was working in a disability support school, and then doing some youth work in the evenings then, and doing a different disability support job on the weekend, and then working in a bar sometimes. And it was all a bit much. And all of that saving up money was so I could eventually go to Palestine, and then other things kind of spiraled out of that. But I had a pretty... I feel like I was doing everything I can to angle myself in the direction of where I am now, not knowing where that would bring me. Yeah.
Do you want to take this Palestine?
Yeah, that's impressive. And now that you're speaking about Palestine, so can you tell us a bit more about that trip that you went to? Like what were you doing there, and what was the turning point for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to volunteer with SkatePal in I think it was October 2016, and during that month I was there with I met Ruby, who I co-founded Free Movement with subsequently. And just like we were in a small village called Asira al-Shamaliya, which is a little bit outside Nablus, which I fact check, but I believe is probably second biggest city in the West Bank, I think.
We'll put it on screen, it'll just appear
whether
you're right or wrong. A little tick.
Figure that out a bit. And well, I mean, I learned an awful lot there. Like the absolute brutality of occupation, I also found it like pretty shocking to see people's kind of life prospects in that situation. I felt very inspired by the community hub that the skate park had created. It's a real like focus point for people, bringing their kids there to skate. But then, there was like theatre groups practicing there, and just like, there's a play park next door. So there's different generations as well.
This was in association with SkatePal, right?
Yeah, so this is SkatePal's skate park in Asir Al Shamaliya. I mean, also, I think anyone who's been to Palestine will like pass this on as well, but just like the level of hospitality is like wild, like truly like nothing you've seen before. Like really just so nice, like offensively nice. It's just so good.
What's the moment that sticks in your head of that?
Yeah, I got a good one. I remember walking with Ruby around the town, and like there was someone who had a very nice garden. So she just got like a few photos of these like flowers out front, and just like they saw her out the window like taking one snap, and they pulled us in by the arm, had us for lunch for like 4 or 5 hours, just multiple courses, like stuff being prepared whilst we're there, and like. Yeah, we ended up, we became quite close with that family, and like Ruby got to do a little like cookery school thing with the mum another day, which is very sweet. And just they really, really take care of you. They drove us into town to go to the best restaurants and markets and all this great stuff, and we were taken care of. I felt very, very lucky on that trip.
That's amazing.
Yeah, these are definitely the best cultural experiences you can have. So it's really, really great. And just hearing from your experience in Palestine, and also knowing the stories of the social skate projects that exist today, we've heard, and I've heard quite a lot of times that people get inspired from being on skate park builds and having that experience. Can you tell us maybe how you and Ruby decided to start free movement skateboarding in 2016, and where that idea came from? Is it following your trip in Palestine, or did that come later on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd had that month in Palestine, and then following that, I went to Athens to go do some non-skateboarding related volunteering. I went to a sort of social centre called Cora, which is a social project that's still working and doing some really important work with refugees and migrants in Athens. And it was whilst I was there. I was just trying to imagine the things that I liked the most about SkatePal and how they could be applied to an Athenian context. Like, what are the things that would benefit the communities there the most? And long story short, I really think the key difference was just that, like, things needed to be mobile. Like, there's a million complicated reasons why it's difficult to make a individual community hub in Athens, but to have a mobile skate park that fits in a van that can sort of meet people and their needs where they're at was the main sort of adaptation I thought was needed. So kind of theorized that project, got that going in my head, and it was then I met by a chance meeting whilst working in Cora. I was just like chopping up some onions. Working in their social kitchen, they're sort of churning out 700 meals a day, so a lot of onions to be chopped.
Wow.
Opposite me was someone else chopping onions, and you speak to all different volunteers, people from different places, a very nice and open and social environment. So I was speaking to them, and it turns out that they were from the large funding body called Help Refugees, now called Choose Love. And it was one of those moments where I'd had the ideas about how I might, how projects might look in Athens. If I didn't say it in that moment, it would have been a regret for the rest of my life. So I just, there have been times when I've told this story, and I've told it as if I told it with like my on the moment pitch was with like great confidence and like real coolness, but I was actually quite intimidated and quite quiet. I was like, I've actually got a little bit of an idea about how a skateboarding project might maybe work. Maybe, please, sorry. And then they were really into it.
We've got to just address the fact that I think your first version of the project was you cycling ramps around. So I think, and anyone who's been to Athens will know it's just hills everywhere and the road is not smooth. So you've got you're going to have mega legs by the end of that, which I'm not saying you don't have.
Well,
but they could,
Let's hope people are listening and not watching. Back at home, they'll see I've got pretty normal sized legs. My original plan was to try and just make it. I couldn't imagine that someone would give you money for a van to run a skateboarding project. So I just kind of thought we'll do it on a bike from a bike trailer, which indeed is pretty nuts considering the topography of Athens, top Greek word. Yes. So anyway, planned it out in a lot more depth, and got in touch with Ruby, and kind of did a little plan on how we would do it, budgeted it out, kind of a few estimations of what things would look like, and of course things changed massively in the subsequent years, but we were fortunate enough to be backed by Help Refugees in that moment. I went back home for a few months and sorted my life out, and we bought a van, and come March 2017, more or less, we were out in Athens, or we were driving to Athens, maybe something like that. We're approaching our 5th birthday.
Yeah. Wow, the year flies. But what I was going to ask is maybe we can backtrack a little bit, and you can give us a sense of you explained that the differences between Palestine and Athens are great, and so the requirements of a project are going to be very different as well. But what was the urgency in Athens then? What was going on at that time, and what were you seeing working in Cora specifically with migrant communities and those seeking asylum?
Yeah, I mean, that's true that they're vastly different contexts, and one of the things I would say, the reason that it needs to be mobile is that the camps especially are very, very far out of the city, very, very isolated communities. And during the time we've been there, the capacity of people to live in those communities to access the city has been cut and cut and cut, and people are stuck in a little pressure cooker of a horrible little squalid refugee camp, and no one cares. But we'll do more of that in a bit. So yeah, basically got to know a lot of displaced people during those weeks there, and I guess I felt at that point, to some extent, basic needs were being met, and there was very little in terms of recreation, or actually maybe there would be some kind of stuff for little kids, like there was creches and like
Colouring.
kindergartens, colouring for sure, plenty of colouring pencils available, but not so much in terms of like recreation for like teenagers and young adults.
And how long are these kids are staying there for a really long time as well, right? I mean, for some of them, their entire childhoods are taken up by this process.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think if you arrive, your date for your first asylum interview, once you can get through the process, is maybe, we're talking like 5 years time. So you've got 5 years in limbo before you have an idea what a decision might be.
And then that process takes a further... I'm going to be honest. I don't want to be quoted because I don't know 100%. But several years for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But effectively, that means that what you're looking at is, for many people, a hugely drawn out period of time where you can't play, you can't relax, you can't kind of have fun in the sense that we would kind of understand it in this context, right? Like
what I can say for sure is that I know it's 17 years is the average amount for a displaced person from leaving their country of origin to being settled and safe in a new one.
Wow.
So it's a phenomenal amount of time in limbo, unable to, get on with their, aspirations for their life, which is a horrific thing. It's a really, really long time to just be trying to get through each day. So
well, I was because one of the questions we wanted to ask was, why this project specifically? Like, why not, why, if you decide one day you want to start a skateboarding project and you realize it's possible, why Athens, a place that you'd only kind of visited that time and had only spent time? But I suppose once you see that and across Europe as, British person from Europe, but someone from that world, that's definitely the most imminent crisis of that time. Like the migrant crisis was impacting every country, whether they wanted to kind of accept it or not, right? And did you? I guess the question is like, you're sitting there in Athens, you've gone out there to volunteer, and you decide to start this project. Like, it's going to mean you've got to move there. Right, like the question would be why Athens, but I think you answer it based on just like the huge requirements of these kids.
Yeah, I mean it's a place that absolutely needs it, and I'm gonna answer with an element of selfishness in that I also like the city. Like I also enjoy. Like I think it's a complicated answer, a bit of a problematic answer maybe, but it's a nice place to live. Like to an extent, like it has its own beauty and it has amazing nature and mountains nearby. And if you're fortunate enough, like I am, to be able to access those things regularly, you can live quite a pleasant life there. That's just not the case for many people that live there. Certainly not a lot of the people we work with. But yeah, I enjoy living there. Yeah.
And I actually think that's also fair because you are still co-founding a project and giving and your time and dedication to a purpose and a social cause. But there is also this entire well-being that you also need to have on the side of doing that, because I know it's also quite heavy. We will probably get there later on, but it's quite heavy to be doing what you've been doing for the past years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think like, especially at the point where we were working very regularly in refugee camps, like that was a real emotional toll on everyone in the team. It is
these were the early days, right? The early years.
I mean, until COVID, like, and we can, there was a change in the law making it very difficult for smaller NGOs to access camps, which we can talk about more in a bit. But like, yeah, basically, just like running those sessions was a very, very tiring thing, like emotionally exhausting for everyone.
Yeah.
And it was a high level of burnout in the team, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so those first days, you're driven out to Athens. I know for a fact your van got robbed and all your stuff got taken.
Pre-work.
That was in Italy, right?
Yeah, that was in Rome. We were running. Yeah, that's. I mean, as you know, it's 5 years ago. It's a long time ago. But yes, we were driving through Italy, and we were in Rome, and we had some sessions set up with other people working in kind of refugee supporting projects, all with donations that we had received in England before. And we were recommended to park in the Tiburtina station of Rome. I don't know if anyone knows that place. I didn't before.
No, you
but
do.
If you ever ask anyone from Rome, like, and you say, like, we parked in Tiburtina, they're like, what? Like obviously you got robbed. But,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Ruby had it worse than me. She lost a full suitcase. I lost a speaker. I remember finding my pants about 50 meters away from the 50 meters away from the van. It was just like an individual set of underwear of mine. And it was a set. No, it was an individual pair of boxers.
Well, knowing you as I do, you're never more than 50 meters away from a pair of your pants. That's how it goes.
Yeah,
It's part of
often millimeters, just wearing them. Right.
Well, yeah, and so I mean that's a tough thing to go through. Like, you obviously didn't turn around and just drive straight home, which I'm sure there are some people in the world.
We had a really funny like week staying in a like real cheap hostel with just like very, very drunk 17-year-old Australians, which was, has its, which is fine, like, which is like pretty entertaining. Like,
and you arrive in Athens, like, what's the, let's say, was it what you expected? Did you realize you'd bitten off a bit more than you could chew, or did you feel kind of like, yeah, we've got this actually?
Yeah, I mean, I was very excited. Like, I was like, this is. You got to appreciate that. Like, I kind of briefly mentioned it before, but like at that point, I'd been working a lot at different jobs, trying to push myself in this direction, and I was like kind of speechless that I was able to do this. That someone would like fund me to do this. It was like amazing. So I was hyped, like genuinely, like really, really, like feeling very blessed to be able to do it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, like we were working super, super hard, but like I don't know, it didn't feel like a chore at that point.
But you didn't have a flat, you didn't have the ramps yet, right? You had a van. You basically drove a van from England, turned up in Athens and went,
yeah, you're right.
Guess we better get started.
Yeah, well, yeah. You're right. We stayed on the floor of a friend's project for like 2 or 3 weeks, trying to find a flat and trying to rent a place. I do very clearly remember the conversation I had with my first landlord, and him just being like, I kind of want some evidence that you're going to be able to pay the rent. Like, what's your job? What do you do? And trying to explain it to him and just being like, so like, refugees, and then felt a negative sentiment from him. And he was like, skateboarding, negative sentiment from him. Just like, being paid by an international NGO as a British person to teach refugee skateboarding. And it was just like a lot of skepticism on his part. It was a pretty weird vibe. I think it's a hard thing to, and also like fully understand it at the point where like, I know for a fact that like his son couldn't get a job in retail, like just selling stuff in a shop, and you're there as a Northern European doing that holy trinity of of like
very niche.
Yeah, like pretty weird stuff that isn't so understandable to someone. There are times when it's met with a little bit of hostility at worst and something more chill at times. But anyway, so yes, during those early days, we worked super hard. We built the ramps in that flat later on.
In the room, right? In the front?
Yeah, in the living room of the flat. on the first floor. First floor balcony, built 2 quarter pipes that like Russian doll into each other, like one fits in the other one. So I remember very clearly the moment of like putting one frame inside the other and just being like, yes, like super happy that the design worked. I mean, I've got to give credit to Benji, like master carpenter. Help Refugees linked us up with him right at the start of the project. He'd been working in Calais for a long time before. He was sort of stuck around with us for the first 6 months or so. And yeah, he was a real help. Like, he'd done a lot of really great work before. And yeah, he helped. Yeah, he designed and built those ramps, and I passed the tools and made cups of tea. And then we lowered them on ropes off the balcony down to the van, and they fit in the van to the millimeter, and they're still the ones we're using now 5 years on.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had a few little replaced sheets of ply and a few little adjustments here and there, but like they are well built. They are extremely good, like finely designed things.
But what have been the main challenges about working in Athens, and can you explain maybe how you address those challenges?
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, definitely at the point when we were working in the camps a lot, staff mental health was a real issue. Yeah, like it's just an exhausting environment. It's really, really difficult to see people living in those conditions, and to try and run something that feels like quality youth provision there is just really, really hard. Like they're chaotic spaces with, we have capacity to deal with sort of 15 to 20 kids at a time, and there's probably another 200 in the near vicinity that need to be entertained. So if you're lucky, you get someone from the partner NGO that you're working with to go and do a massive game of football or a massive game of frisbee or something, and deal with as many of those kids as possible. But like, that's not every time, and it certainly isn't 100% effective either. So, there's still kids that are desperate to skate, and then just like, you try and cater for them and do as many sessions in that camp a week as you can, but it's really, really tough. I can give you all sorts of crazy stories through like stuff that we've seen in camps with like, had to stop sessions for 5 minutes. There's literally like, this is a nice story. A wedding procession came through a skate session once. We had to like, wow. There's a wedding! Everyone stop! There's a wedding, which was lovely. But like,
it's an happy event.
Well, I mean, but there's been way more chaotic things and very, very challenging behaviour from young people, and you also need to acknowledge your capacity to deal with that as Mr. Skateboard Man that comes for 1.5 hours per week and like doesn't speak their native language. The idea that you might be able to genuinely influence their behavior is maybe you can do something. For sure, like what we do is beneficial and like is a pleasant thing for them for a bit of time, but the idea that you might be able to truly influence their behavior is like that's that needs to be for like the people that are constantly with them and their parents.
And it is true, you aren't speaking their language, and at best you're meeting them with a few words here and there, right? But I mean, you must spend quite a lot of time pretty much miming foot placements on the board.
Yeah, that's
and like
absolutely
trying
true.
to explain complex reasons for being kind to each other and everything is a little bit tough, maybe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's very, very difficult. I've got my, I've got my big command words across a number of languages nailed. I can say sort of come here and go and whatever else across, like, can scream that stuff in Arabic, Farsi, French, English, and Greek quickly. But I like, at some point, I guess we'll speak about the Eduskate curriculum that we've been doing with Concrete Jungle. There is absolutely no way I could imagine running that stuff in any
5 languages. Yeah.
5. Yeah.
Even one other one.
Yeah. But maybe some of them start actually also picking up some English, which is super beneficial for them.
Absolutely, and it was one of these kind of like unrecognized benefits of the project. Like kids are getting sent there because they're like a lot of Greek kids in the sessions that we're doing in the city at the moment are parents are loosely sending their kids there because they want them to have a good time skateboarding, but they're very happy for them to be exposed to some English as well. That said, we've all got an all Greek team now, so it's less so. That was like, a few years ago, that was definitely the case. Kids were really stoked on speaking English. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's definitely one of the indirect impacts of your activities there.
For sure.
Amazing. And then, I mean, you talked about maybe the challenge of kind of mental health and how it is working, actually the reality of working in those camps. Were there any other challenges that you faced working there?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the very nature of the camps, they're so intentionally excluding those people from the rest of society. So at a point where we were doing 11 sessions a week and 6 of those sessions were in those refugee camps, we can't truly claim to be promoting one of our core values of social cohesion, or like we can in the rest of the week we're doing it reasonably well, but like, spending so much time running services within these refugee camps that we're not creating the spaces in which like young displaced people and and young Greeks and people living in the city are mixing and sort of experiencing that socially cohesive environment that we really, really wanted to be creating. It's been an interesting bit of time regarding that actually since coronavirus. Absolutely brutally, really, really awful thing has happened of like the government has changed the laws during the first lockdown, a sort of quiet shuffling through of this of a law, which means that any NGO who isn't Greek registered and doesn't have 2 years of accounts in Greece and also meets some other very, very difficult to attain criteria. Thank you very much. Then they aren't able to access the camps, which means that we're unable to go to camps anymore. But also like so's our friends' mobile library project, so's all this like maternal care, so are various food projects. It's just a broad spectrum of services that people are not going to get access to anymore. The only people that passed it, as you might expect, are the massive multinational NGOs that, although do some good work, plenty of good work, do not, in my mind, respond to the needs on the ground. There's a lot of people falling through the cracks with them, and I think that was where Free Movement was really good, and as are all those other smaller projects, like filling in for what can't be done on a massive scale. So yeah, it's a real shame for the people living in those camps, and there's a lot of them. It's 120,000 refugees and migrants and displaced people in Greece, and 20,000 on the islands, 100,000 on the mainland, and it's pretty brutal to hear the stories of things in camps as it now becomes increasingly difficult for them to access any services. People are just going to be left to sort of left in these little pressure cookers, just sort of waiting infinitely, with deteriorating mental health, no services, nothing to keep them entertained, very limited educational provision, waiting for an asylum decision, and it's tough. I think if you kind of look at it from a governmental perspective, from like what's a smart investment in the future of your country, like these people are going to be in Europe long term. That's pretty established at this point. So is it smart for you to give them compound trauma, or is it smart for you to maybe invest the money that you're putting into camps and increasingly militarized police and like fingerprint scanning as you walk in and out of like refugee camps and all that other stuff? Or maybe it's smart to put that into like schemes that could help people get some education and maybe some skills and maybe like become a citizen that wants to contribute to society, because of course they do. Like, of course they want to go be part of, live there. People have come to Europe for a sense of safety and a better future. Like, why don't you permit them to have a better future? And Greece, with its incredibly massive aging population, could probably do with some massive influx of young people that want to do the jobs that you don't want to do. We can do that rant for a while.
There's been a lot of media coverage has dropped off since the kind of, let's say, the kind of most controversial period of the crisis, where the most people were coming over from into the Greek islands and into Greece. And now it feels like the media coverage has kind of dropped off, much in the same way as it always does with any kind of crisis once it's run its course, let's say,
within
as
the media cycle.
within the
at
media
least.
cycle. And but I think it's clearly clear for you, and clear for those you work with, that it's really not the case that problem is in any sense solved, or is in any sense like more sustained, or what? Like how is even the realities of your participants changed over the last 5 years?
Well, it's pretty stagnant. Those that perhaps have asylum in Greece and are able to attend some kind of educational program, like, or if they're assuming they're young people, some of them might have a somewhat more integrated kind of integrated experience, but like generally, like those that we used to work with in refugee camps are not getting that. And they, as I just said, they're getting a lot less services. So I think they're pretty bored. I think that's the kind of key takeaway, really. I think it's a thing you don't talk about it with migration a lot either, actually. Like the kind of the unsung menace is just boredom, like infinite boredom for years and years and years, as well as insecurity, as well as dangerous situations and dangerous journeys. Like, I think unfortunately that's the situation. And just to think about those participants of ours that were in the camps, we're doing what we can to try and work with them still, and like bring them out on trips to out to like other sessions, and bring them to public sessions, and bring them to skate parks. But even that, organizationally, for like partner NGOs that are also that are able to access the camps with the best will in the world from the individual staff members within them, administratively it's a very complicated thing for them to do that, and they've only got so many hours in the week, and you do your best, but it's difficult to like make it happen on a regular basis. So for those guys it's pretty rough, honestly. Like pretty rough.
And around those early days, you were, what the team, as you said, was more English speaking. And it's developed. You had volunteers coming and going. You developed your volunteer program. Was it a program or a scheme?
It was a program for a year.
For a brief period. But now, like, there's a sense in which you've structured your organization in a different way recently. And who are the team now?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Staff-wise, it looks very different nowadays. I'm the only sort of international person left in the team. Everyone else is Greek. We're not doing the international volunteer scheme anymore. It's I just basically in terms of like getting basically it's a lot better for us just to be like way closer to like the Greek skate scene, working with like really, really skilled people with a background in like solidarity projects and NGOs and stuff like that understand that landscape. Also like working with people that now we're doing all of these public sessions nowadays, like running them in English is nonsense. Like you need to it needs to be done in Greek. And
because the public sessions, maybe we can talk a little bit about how you moved from being very focused in those kind of that refugee context, and then now also in the context of COVID-19, right? Like you've really changed that. So all this kind of links with that government policy change as well, in terms of like we spoke about ourselves being like a sort of crisis, almost like a crisis response organization, whilst we were working in the refugee camps, trying to provide something to those young people that are living in such difficult situations. Whilst also acknowledging that those sessions were, in terms of quality, at times, unfortunately, pretty low. Like you're doing the best you can, but you just like, it's absolute chaos and it can't be anything else. And that's due to the nature of the space you're given, and the absolutely inhumane conditions that people are put in. I actually wrote a article for Jenkum that was like mapping the
mapping the sort of refugee crisis through in parallel to our sessions with like the size of the bit of space that we got to teach sessions in. So like in Elianas camp where we used to work, like used to have in our first year this massive like event space hall that was like similar size building to the place we're in, but not building, sorry, like a marquee, like sort of tents thing with a perfect smooth wooden floor. So you could teach in the rain and like the floor wouldn't hurt if a kid fell on it. It was like absolutely ideal. And just like as time moved on, obviously that space needs to be taken up for housing of lower and lower quality is worth noting as well. So, they're not like, they're called ISO box shelters, but like a little
shipping containers.
Yeah, more or less shipping containers. Yeah. That some of them are tents as the time goes on. And yeah, that eventually just becomes a thin strip of concrete. Some of it is just rubble. Like, and how are you meant to teach? How are you meant to provide quality youth provision on a space that's like that? So yeah, that was us in sort of crisis mode, thinking about it becoming a bit more like developmental. There was an awareness that those sessions weren't as good as they could be, and the times that we did manage to bring those kids outside of the camp and get them to a skate park, or even just like there was a couple of sessions we ran where we managed to get them to a nearby university and they were just in a basketball court amongst some trees, very calm and green space. Like those kids were like angels. They were like either incredibly excited or just like having their first nice peaceful time in a beautiful green space where like people you need to be around trees, man. It's very good for you. And the behavior the kids exhibited then was just like, oh my God, this is just like where you should be. And it's awful that you have to live in that place. So yes, this acknowledgement that is what we kind of consider to be a developmental session and that we wanted to move towards that. As coronavirus came and I mentioned that law changed, making it more and more difficult for smaller NGOs to access refugee camps, it became necessary to, it became necessary for a second. We weren't allowed to access those absolute bastards. Like meant that all smaller organizations couldn't access camps anymore. That kind of forced we'd spoken about moving towards this more developmental stuff and wanting to do more of that, and that kind of forced our hand a little bit earlier than we might have done to work in that way, so from then on we were trying to do these inner city sessions in basketball courts,
focusing on social cohesion.
Mixing with more mixing with like local kids.
This was Greek, this is Greek kids. This is also what other communities are in the kind of like day to day. You've got plenty of Greek kids, of course. Massive Albanian population. And more recently, we've been working with a lot of sort of Roma young people, and they're, it's the same. It's the same in Britain. It's a really, people will like say like chat shit on jippos very, very sort of comfortably. Traveller community is a very acceptable little prejudice that is a really disgusting and shocking thing. Like it's very much accepted, and it's one of the few that just it doesn't go challenged in any kind of.
I remember hearing it. I remember hearing it at uni before. I don't know. I just heard some mad stuff about that community that is just so completely fine, like in most people's minds. Like,
exactly.
Anyway, and that's absolutely the case in Greece. So I think being able to run some sessions where young people spend some time, just like like some young Greek kid just spends some time with a young Roma kid and just has like a bit of normal coexistence, just having a little fun time on a skateboard together is a very special thing that I feel lucky to be involved in. Yeah.
And have you seen, because you're speaking about social cohesion, have you seen any behavioral change, in the evolution of the skate session you've been giving? Maybe there were some, as you said, like prejudices in the very beginning, and then these have changed and there were more easier contacts within the participants that were joining the sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'm gonna, we're gonna step away from the participants, and I'm gonna tell you about the skate mums. It's all about the skate mums at times.
It's always is about. We've got to shout out our own skate mums.
Yeah,
as well.
shout out Skate
Ascott.
Shout out. Yeah, legends in the scene. Yeah, you know, like it's a very special thing to just witness the mums on the side of a session, just like chatting casually and over the weeks, bringing their kids there repetitively, like becoming closer and you know, becoming friends. And you know, there's a big mums WhatsApp group for our sessions in Patricia at the moment, and which is, you know, one of the neighborhoods we work in. It's really, really special to sort of witness that our sessions have become this focal point for, you know, and actually it mirrors what I was speaking about with Skate Pal. I hadn't thought about this before. And like that thing with like Skate Pal's Park becoming this place for like a bit of a community hub. We're in this basketball court in the neighborhood of Patricia twice a week, and like when we're there, as are the rest of the parents, you know, they're watching their kids skate, but they're chatting, they're catching up, and like it's a very welcome like respite for them. You know, they're working parents and they're tired and they need this little moment, and you know, they sit and chat or, you know, get on with the rest of the things they need to do. But it's one of the things that's been, yeah, another kind of unacknowledged benefit of the project is just having parents just be like, thank you for the time off you've given me, like I really needed it. Also being able to, them using it as like bribery to their kids to like do their homework, like no skateboarding unless you do your homework. Like,
is it like
if it works for you, like great.
Just something that's jumped out to me with you saying this, because also obviously like Seven Hills is another project that the Skate Room supports and is supporting this year. Also Concrete Jungle Foundation Wonders Around the World. Skaters down, like over and over again we see like skate parks specifically, but the more public organized programs in those skate parks, they become these places where families of different backgrounds can kind of come together and build community. But skateboarding is also specifically one of those activities that you can't really leave your kid on their own to do. It's not like you can drop them off at the thing and they'll play for a bit and maybe you can come pick them up in a bit or whatever. Like, you do kind of need to be watching them. So there's a presence, a real parental presence and family presence around like those kind of skate parks and those or those sessions, right? Which potentially with a different sport, I mean, depending on how, you know, how that works, it feels like there's a lot more of that in these kind of projects. It's just something I've noticed through interviewing like people that we work with. And
it creates community gatherings, as you say.
Gatherings,
it creates connections and relations with the people from this area.
Yeah, I like marrying that kind of that presence of parents with a non-competitive thing like skateboarding, because if you have the presence of parents with a competitive thing like football,
that's true.
You get someone else's dad shouting at you while you're wearing shorts in the rain in England at 8:30 a.m. on your Saturday. Yeah, which is clearly why I quit football.
Yeah, you've got some trauma associated with that.
My football sucks.
I mean, the word that comes to mind hearing about, you know, coming to Athens with Ruby, building the ramps, needing to figure out, you know, various different ways of accessing these locations over the period. Like, the word agile really comes to mind for me. Like, I think Free Movement is the most agile project I've at least come across. And I think that there's something about the nature of your work or the nature of who you are as a team, or just, I don't know what it comes down to. Like, maybe you can go into that, like, who, because we were talking about your team briefly before, but you didn't really get to mention them now. Like, who are the team now, and what do you think it is about your crew and what you do that makes you be able to respond to things like COVID-19 and just be there in a different way, and these new law changes, and be there in that way? And
I mean, I think what it is with the team is just that, like, there's a real genuine desire to do the work. You know, there's a people want to work with young people and give great quality skateboarding lessons, and also build in these other kind of youth worky values, if you will. And you know, I really, really feel it from everyone that we want to like justify our wages. I want to feel like I'm getting, you know, we don't get much money, but like, you know, I want to just feel like I'm doing right by the people that give us money. I want to feel like I'm like pushing as hard as I can and like doing right by the kids that we work to support as well. Like, you know, they deserve it. Like, they've and I feel that from everyone in the team, which is an absolute blessing. You know, we've really pushed to like keep finding the right people to work with, and you know, when that's the situation, like those people want to stick around, which is, you know, I feel very fortunate for. Like, and I like to think that I'm, you know, doing my best to give a good example of that as well, and trying really, really, really bloody hard.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
Clive, maybe
So let me talk through the team.
Go on.
You want the team, right?
Go on.
All right. So
Tell us who they are. Give the shout outs.
yeah, massive shout out to Lefteris Xanthakis, left, aka Lefty.
New Papa Bear.
Yeah. He's a father to a beautiful baby girl called Maya. And he is kind of on your sort of financey, legally stuff, the van-y stuff, and sessions, and just generally being a wise man who understands how Greece works very profoundly. Like, I love that man dearly. Done a lot. We got Denia Nicholas, and she does a lot of brilliant stuff with monitoring, evaluation, and learning, and doing our reports, and like done an incredible amount of work on like getting, like there was 1 week where I ran the so she normally does the social media as well as the reporting. I ran the social media 1 week for a winter campaign. During that time, she just like made this incredible like Excel thing of like registering all the participants. That's just so, there's so many formula in there, and you know, and I'm just like, it's so far beyond
One of those
what
sheets
I
that
could
just like
ever
updates
imagine. Yeah,
across the board.
yeah, and then and it's all GDPR safe, and then you're clicking here, and then another, like there's a graph coming out there. It's very clever, and it's color coded. Is this going to make for a good podcast?
Definitely. Definitely. Your technological ineptitude is funny forever.
You wouldn't believe it. It was literally like she put a video online, the television on the internet. No, I've heard about Instagram. It's going to be big one day. What's happening? Yeah, and then
Denia Nicholas, Denia.
yeah, we got we also got Koga, Koga Selbast, who's a legend in the scene. He has got a strong CV for what we're doing. So Koga was a pro in his 20s. He worked for sort of a UNHCR funded education program in his sort of late 20s. He is Kurdish and Greek, so he speaks fluent Kurdish, fluent Greek, of course, good English, Arabic and Farsi as well. So just like language wise, so good. Wow. His capacity to lead a group of children and like adapt to the needs of every individual one. He has a long, like a deep bag of like youth work tricks, you know what I mean? He just knows how to work with young people. It's real
the blood snot technique. That's your
That's all I got. You know, I just blood snot any situation I can. It doesn't always work. Like can't blood snot every kid will. God damn it. And then you got Yanis Katsouanos, which is a more difficult surname. And he's just been on us with our like training tour of the UK, which we'll talk about more in a bit. And yeah, he's doing a lot of the stuff like involved in improving the sessions and a bit of the maintenance stuff as well. Just like really good skater, been good for bringing us closer to the scene and a great inspiration for the kids. And then just on a couple more shout outs of Denia Kopita, who works for Skatism. She's in the hourly instructors, also came with us on the trip recently. Irato, whose surname I don't know, and I apologize if you're listening, Irato.
We'll put it down there.
Oh, Khatira. Irato Khatira.
There you go.
And just like both of them, they're just like, they contribute so much. They really, really inspire the young people we work with. It's very important to have like strong women leading sessions that like skate well. And it just means that like, you know, the young girls that come across see them, you know, can see themselves represented in the people that are teaching them. And you can't put a value on that. That really, really means a lot. So we're very, very lucky with the team we have. And I bloody love those guys.
They're a great crew. Great crew.
Yeah.
Clara, do you want to jump into the skate room?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been following Free Movement's activities since 2019, and I personally always have been a big fan of what you do. And I also remember, when there was the COVID outbreak, how we felt really sad that your activities had to change, and you jumped back into something different, and as Ars said, very agile, and it's amazing. So that's also why we decided to seal a more formal partnership this year, and the skate room is committed to support you with a 50,000 USD contribution to your activities and programs in Greece. So maybe could you tell us about what's your vision for this year, and how that commitment will impact your activities in Athens?
Yeah, and firstly, of course, I just want to say, like, we like really, really appreciate it, and we really like want to, we'll be pushing as hard as we ever have done, to like keeps using it to like support the young people that really need it through skateboarding. So like we're going to be pushing towards getting a space, a skate park, the security with which the security which the funding from the skate room has given us really, really supports us in that. If we were having to be really, really stressed out about getting funding in from different places, we wouldn't be able to commit the time to looking for a permanent space, which I really think will benefit the young people we work with. And yeah, there's a essential and difficult bit of Greek bureaucracy to battle through with that, which is like registering as a Greek organization, which will really, really help us, but is some pretty dead chat for a podcast. But yeah, we'll get there, all essential Greek tax number, and then we'll be able to rent a bit of land and hopefully build a skate park.
We have a dedicated a lot of bureaucratic listeners, admin staff, they love this podcast, so please go deep.
Bureaucracy.gr. The podcast. Right, please carry on.
No, but maybe because you're speaking about having your own space, how will that affect your operations, and why is that so important? Because I know it's something that people sometimes cannot understand. Like you have been doing your activities now on public spaces or basket courts and stuff like that. Why is a specific skateboarding space important?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. Like, for us, with the spaces we've been working in, there's always been a sense of temporariness to it. Like, you never know, who you might upset by being there. Maybe there'll be some like police checking you out, especially when you're working with young people that might not be documented. That's a serious risk, and we can't be drawing attention to them. You can't be doing that as a project. So the consistency of having a center means that people have a safe space in which to skate, and so much more as well. Like, it can be a real hub for social cohesion. Like, if I kind of think about my experiences growing up skating, we're talking about many, many, many hours at the skate park with a relatively consistent group of people, and that's what communities are made of. Doing it for a few hours a week with people is a fantastic thing, and we've built community through that in the different places in which we work. But if we can have a center in which people can visit every day, for an extended period of time, that's how you really, really build community bonds. And I think will just amplify the kind of the key aims of our project, which I haven't mentioned yet, actually, is well-being, empowerment, and social cohesion. I think it will just only make that stuff more powerful. So that's what we want to do long term.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and it's something that we've noticed, and a lot of other social skate projects have been talking about the importance of an infrastructure, and have been focusing on that as well, even though programming is also very, very important in what you do, for sure. But maybe to jump on that, so you've worked actually closely with other partners of the skate room, such as Skatistan, the Good Push Alliance, Concrete Jungle Foundation.
Yeah, a bunch of legends, all of them.
Yes, they are. We know that they're also doing amazing work. Maybe can you tell us a bit more about that community of social projects and how it's flourishing through collective action and education? Because we know that there is also a lot of relationship between the social projects, and it's actually become a huge, as we call it, a social skate movement within the social skate community. How have all these projects worked together and helped each other in growing?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's just been so supportive of everyone from the start, and the first funding applications that I sent to help refugees was read through by Charlie from Skate Pal a bunch of times, and helped me sort of refine the messaging on that. More recently, this stuff with so with Skaterstan and the Good Push, we've worked really closely with them. We were one of their Good Push partners in I think the second year they did it, and that meant that Ruby, my co-founder, and Amber, who used to work with us, went out to South Africa to see their school there and sort of learn from some of their practice, which is absolutely an incredible experience. And I remember hearing about the learnings from and how to run sessions from that as they came back from that. And of course with Concrete Jungle, we've been running their Eduskate program in the last little while, since I think about November. I've been working very closely with Tim from Concrete Jungle, and so they've built this absolutely incredible curriculum called Eduskate, which is an 11-week long course, different sessions, kind of building on each other, and all about kind of youth empowerment and helping them sort of be active citizens in their own community. Doing stuff individually for themselves, for their community, and then also having a sort of looser, more play bit. Those three elements kind of build their way into the curriculum throughout. And honestly, like using that as a structure has just meant that the quality of our sessions has absolutely skyrocketed. And it's so nice to have someone like, that document, right? Like it's not public yet, but the Eduskate document thing that they sent us is a phenomenal piece of work. Like that is months of work, like for sure. It's like 45 pages and it's sick. It's like so good. And to be able to, have they're letting us trial it for free, and we're trying to kind of contributing our knowledge to it and stuff and our thoughts on it. But just like, you can imagine in other NGO worlds, and of course in like the private sector, like we're competitors. We should be competing.
It's very collaborative.
Yeah, there's just no need, and it's just like we can just we can all just give each other stuff, and we're all
thanks to things like the Good Push Alliance, Skaterstan sort of funded back network of NGOs who the Skateroom also works very closely with. Like there is a central resource base. There are things like the Push Against Racism campaign petition, which you, I think, and Free Movement and other NGOs kind of collaborated on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've been on a lot of the calls with that and trying to support where I can. There's a lot of really important work going on there. I do believe the fund has been launched today. People can apply for a grant if they're doing strong anti-racist work within skateboarding. There's just a lot of amazing work being done, and a lot of people looking to support each other within that. So, genuinely, like if I was to sort of think back to, before 5 years ago, I couldn't imagine like a world that I'd want to be a part of more. Like genuinely, this is like, it absolutely links the things that I like and care about. Of skateboarding and sort of social justice-y stuff.
So what are you doing in town in Brussels? Like why aren't you in Greece right now? What have you been doing the last weeks?
Yes, good question. I've been, the last week I've been in the UK with the Free Movement team and a couple of the guys from Concrete Jungle. Yeah, sort of their sort of key instructors from Free Movement and some of the guys from Concrete Jungle. And what we've been doing is a bit of training and a bit of like hanging out with other social skateboarding projects and just trying to understand how we can improve our practice from other people and sharing what we've learned as well, So it's called the Beyond Skateboarding Tour. And the whole point is about, we're trying to figure out what are the best ways that social skateboarding projects can go beyond skateboarding. How can we do something that adds value to what we do more than a skateboard lesson, So it's been a really incredible week. Like, started off in Manchester a week and a bit ago now, and we did the Skateboard GB Get Rolling qualification, which is sort of
Skateboard GB is the Olympic committee, right, around skate.
The skateboarding federation. So they have the Olympic sort of elite sport end, and they're increasingly developing their community development end, which my good friend Chris Lawton, who works for Skate Nottingham, who I sort of, me, him, and the people from Concrete Jungle kind of collaboratively work to make this happen. So he's a community development guy, and so we did the Get Rolling qualification in Manchester at Greystone. We visited Project Skate Park in Manchester as well, which is got a huge amount of community outreach. There's some very underprivileged communities in Manchester, as well as having an absolutely incredible skate park under a bridge. We had a very fun time skateboarding there. And then in Nottingham for a bit with Skate Nottingham, we did some sessions there. We also did a guest lecture at Nottingham Trent Uni, which is not my normal gig and was pretty scary, if I'm completely honest. We went to Sheffield and went to Bournebrook DIY. Like, there's some amazing people that have built this DIY skate park in a bit of land that was once a pretty sketchy place to go, and they've made an amazing community hub there. Heard about the things that was during the first lockdown, heard about the things that's done for people's mental health during lockdown, and the community that's been built around it, the sessions that they're doing, making space for women and girls and LGBTQ plus community. They've also made disabled access to it, and it's been built to a European standard. It's it's an incredible DIY. And Aldi next door are trying to extend their supermarket onto this land and kick them out, so they're in the big fight. The $7,000 skate park. It's a $150,000 skate park built for $7,000.
Wow!
I got their whole sales pitch down, but those guys are sick. I was very impressed with Bournebrook DIY.
Wow.
Go sign the petition.
Go sign the petition.
The petition link in
the description if it's still up
description.
by that point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Petition that.
Amazing. And then you finish things off at the Pioneer, right?
That's right.
That very skate park where you cut your teeth.
I told you this. I wrote a very cheesy email late at night that I felt embarrassed about sending when I read it again. That was just like, it's the ultimate homecoming, and it was the ultimate homecoming. Went back to the skate park where it all started, and invited all of everyone kind of involved in social skateboarding in the UK that I could get hold of to come together and sort of chat about what they're doing, trying to break the conversation up into different themes around diversity and inclusion and mental health and, skate spaces and skate parks and DIYs, and other themes and two more themes. And it was a real special time bringing people together there. And honestly, for me as well, to have my Greek mates that are my mates from the team, to kind of I've seen a lot of where they're from. It's very, very special for me to bring them to where it started for me. So it's been a very special week, and I got the Eurostar over here this morning.
Well, shout out to everyone involved in that project and in the Beyond Skateboarding Tour. I mean, I think any podcast hosts would be happy to have such a full circle. So it brings us back to where we kind of began with you, finishing at the Pioneer. And I want to return to that question of life lessons again that I brought in at the start, and let's say you're what are you, nearly 30? Are you 30?
How dare you? Indeed, I am 29.
You're 29. So
never been so insulted in my life.
After this journey, I asked you at the beginning what sort of lessons you'd learned from skateboarding as a kid, but through this journey and seeing a very different side to skateboarding than most people will have seen from our backgrounds and skating in that context. You've seen skateboarding in many different contexts. What lesson have you taken away from skateboarding out of the context of its kind of traditions, of its Western traditions? What have you learned about what that thing really gives to people?
I think just people learn and fall in very, very similar ways. And like in that process of just like, you know, struggling to do something that is inherently pointless, like it's this silly little toy and I'm just going to try really, really hard for hours to do this thing. Even if like the tricks and the culture and stuff is different, people usually like do the process of trying really, really hard to do something forever that doesn't actually change anything other than just them doing this thing.
And they do it once.
Yeah, and that, they do it once, and that's great.
Yeah, that's enough. Yeah,
and I think that inherently like builds community. Like doing that process whilst you're next to someone else doing the same process. You can be from different backgrounds, not share any language. You can just like, I don't know, yeah, you're just doing that same, and you can be different abilities as well. And you can just be standing next to them. You're doing that process. They're doing that process. You inherently feel connected, and that sense of unity is the thing that I think is like that's the magic. That's what counts. I think like that's what makes me like continue to really, really like deeply believe in this work. Like I love it, and I don't know, I feel very lucky to be able to like commit all of my time to it.
I mean, man, like it's amazing to be able to talk to you about it, to be able to work closely with you, and also just to know you. Also on a personal level, it's beautiful. But I think also your angle on the skateboarding world is an interesting one. You've seen many different faces of it, and in many different contexts. And you know, diversity, equality, inclusion, community, non-traditional movements in skateboarding is kind of a big theme over the last decade, maybe longer, right? Kind of beginning in the most mainstream sense with, you know, like skater stands starting and the social projects that come from there, but also from non-traditional skater, non-male skateboarding movements. Like, do you have a sense of what the next big movement is going to be in skateboarding? Like from where you're at, do you think that that's something you can, you see coming, or do you think it's going to come completely left of field?
Just like that question.
Just like that question. I sent you the questions in advance, my friend, just because you want it to be spontaneous.
What's next in skateboarding? What is next in skateboarding? Clara? Thoughts, feelings, suggestions, questions?
There is the Olympics.
I've heard about it.
Which I guess will have definitely positive, maybe, I don't want to say negative, but impacts that are not necessarily 100% welcomed by the skateboarding community.
Of course,
I guess. So that's definitely one that I can think of.
Yeah, that's the old sportification of it all.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. Yeah, I mean, there'll be a load more resources for stuff in that way. You know, people will be able to get skate parks built a lot more easily. It was pretty funny speaking to Chris Lawton about, like, you know, watching Sky Brown in the finals. He's got his job as the community development guy of Skateboard GB. It's like, I like the idea of like, your funding, your job for the next few years depends on this 13-year-old girl's 540. So fingers crossed she lands it. Oh man, yeah, I don't know. Basically, I think like there will be an increasing level of like hyper sporty competitive skateboarding, and I think at the same time there's probably going to be more resources for the things that I find more interesting in skateboarding. I absolutely welcome and encourage anyone who skates who is motivated by that sporty end of it to have it. I'd be the same with any kids we work with if they were motivated by those things. I'd be really, really enthusiastic to put them in touch with the right people to push that side of it. But it's not the bit that motivates me. And in that way, I'd be kind of pushing the community end of it. And I just really, really hope that there's a lot more resources for that. And I feel that that will be the case.
So what does motivate you? What inspires you to keep going every day? Like waking up doing this again and again and again?
Oh, I don't want to give it an offensively cute answer, but it's the kids' smiles. I don't know, like, yeah, like it's just real nice when you do the sessions and it's just like, you know, when they're just like, the van comes in and they're all running and shouting, they're like, oh my God, like skateboarding, Will, skate, Will, skate. And like, hello, yes, I'm very tired. You're all really lovely, like, well done. Like, you know, that kind of thing.
But that wakes you up in the morning.
Thankfully, our sessions are in the afternoon.
That and the Fredo espresso
If you're drinking them.
Yeah, so yeah, but that like, that sort of gets me through the like, so yeah, do like admin. My average day is very admin-y, and then at like 3-4 o'clock, like get in the van and then become like at that point you're in danger of having a kind of like post-lunch hot grease energy slump.
I can see
and
that.
it's the kiddos that pull you through, you know. It's a powerful thing, Clara. You've got to come and see it.
I've got to come and see for sure. But maybe as a classic but final question,
please.
Where would you see free movement skateboarding in 5 years?
In 5 years,
yeah.
Well, for sure, I'd like to see us with that centre. You know, I really, really think like having a skate park and a hub for young people to meet would be an important thing. And you know, I can imagine. This doesn't just have to happen in Athens, you know what I mean? There's a million places this could work in the world, and you know, a million different communities with which it could work. So why not imagine it with some other places? More generally, within like skateboarding, I'd really, really like. Actually, now I'm going to answer your question from a little bit ago, but I'd really like to sort of see like brands support projects like mine and Concrete Jungle and everyone else in this movement. Why not put their money behind something like that, like they might do a pro skater, you know? Like I'd like this to be
sponsorships, like NGO sponsorships.
I just think like, you know, it's with an increasingly socially aware market of skateboarders, people that care about this stuff, like is probably a pretty wise investment to go and like put some money behind the people that are really like putting the work in every day to improve people's lives through skateboarding, rather than just being really good at switch trades, which is also a valuable contribution to society. Don't get me wrong. Like, don't get me wrong.
You're gonna have all the really good switch traders knocking at your door after this.
Yeah. Hate mail from the switch tray crew. I do apologize. No, but like, and I rate Skateroom for that. I really, really do. Like, you know, like it's people, you know, you guys are supporting the thing, which, you know, I would say that, but you're supporting the thing in skateboarding, which I think like actually kind of changes some stuff. Like whether there's more or less money for like elite skateboarding, I kind of think, you know, changes the lives of a very select few. And I kind of think that projects like the projects that the Skateroom supports is, you know, that's where I would like to see the resources channeled more.
Well, I mean, we do it all to see the change that projects like yours creates. And yeah, thanks to you, man, to everything you do, to your whole team, to Free Movement, to everyone who's helped along the way, and to all our artists, partners, our retail partners, to everyone listening to this. There's another 5 years, another 10 years of Free Movement. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Catch you in 2020.
58.
Yeah. Or 2020, 58.
I don't know. I can't do
2020, 58.
How many years is that?
More than I will count live on a podcast.
Beautiful. Well,
sick.
That was the Skateroom Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's been lovely.
Cheers.